From the innovators of Delay of Game and 2 for 2 comes a new sports talk forum, but with the same mentality, to bring you the top sports headlines in a simple way.
With Ryan Swanigan.
Turn the camera around, bend down, get next to a stuffed puppet of a raccoon and take a selfie there.
And the cows come sailing in.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make.
Not so fast, my friend.
And Brent Bonfleur.
I have nothing against women being in sororities.
One and done, girl. That's the title of my autobiography.
Yeah, the head comb. Imagine me in a little kitty suit.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast.
Oh, welcome into the show. I'm fired up today, man. Had a great Saturday, and now it continues into a phenomenal Sunday to this point. Ryan Swanigan, Brent Bonfleur with you.
Hey.
Great stuff to check out also on our Facebook page, facebook.com/theroute2, on Twitter @the_route2, and on our website, theroute2.wordpress.com, as we close in on the end of the route, believe it or not. And the switch over back to Delay of Game. But on our website and other social media outlets, a podcast special featuring myself, Matt Rigby, and Devin Cleach talking about the winter meetings of Major League Baseball and the offseason up to this point. Great stuff, great insight from Devin and especially Matt Rigby. So definitely check that one out. Great listen. And now we move on into today's podcast. Great one in store. We got some great topics. And we are still waiting for the Associated Press to tell us if it will be Dabo Swinney, Jim Harbaugh, Jim McElwain, or whoever you want.
Right.
You know, maybe Mark D'Antonio.
No.
You know.
He lost.
No. What about Nick Saban? Nick Saban,
he's
Coach
always
of the Year.
So is Urban Meyer.
Right.
I mean, you could throw out Mark D'Antonio's in the same boat. Nah, they don't get it.
But it's going to be Dabo Swinney for Coach of the Year.
I'll be Jim McElwain.
Yeah. So we're still waiting on that, so that way we can settle our bet. That bet might get carried over into Delay of Game. I'm not certain here, but
Well, find out
yeah.
whenever they release it.
Exactly. But anyways, speaking of sports, that's what we do here on this show. A very interesting rant today, and Brent will join me once again. You've been joining me for these rants now for like 4 weeks.
I didn't know I was joining you today.
Oh, yeah. I always
surprise
surprise you.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to find out. And so are you, the listeners. So let's get to it. I'm ranting about the fans, baby.
Yes, it's time for the original Ryan's Rant, where Ryan goes off on something that's more fake than fake or completely improbable. This used to air on his old show, but now he's gone from that show, so he's here on the route. And so, Ryan's Rant can continue to harvest life's absurd issues that have simple solutions if logic is applied. In short, we just call this segment Ryan's Rant.
Oh, man, I can't wait until I can carry this over to Delay of Game. That's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm ranting about fans today because I've been thinking about this for a little while, and when I was at the Nebraska-Iowa game, it kind of hit me that fans in sports, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them they're just really annoying. And either A, they're uneducated, or B, they disregard a lot of things because, for whatever reason, they just want to put on blinders. Really, they put on these blinders and ignore some of the basic realities of their team or of other teams, their opposing team. Like, For example, I was at Nebraska, Iowa, and I was just listening to these fans just bag on Tommy. What are you doing? You don't know what you try being
best fan in all sports.
You try being on the field with pressure in your face, and you try seeing over some of those defensive linemen and trying to hit a wide receiver over the open field on a play that was called and a play that you are supposed to come through on. You try doing that. Put yourselves in that spot. And then fans with the answer, well, I wasn't, It's like, no, you weren't thinking. That's what you weren't doing. See, I just got you now. I just told you, what the reality of it is. You're blowing it off. And it's like, well, then, okay, then this argument conversation is over. It's not about winning or losing. It's about who has the common sense here. And a lot of fans either A, don't have it, or B, they don't apply it. And that's why fans, they're a problem in sports. But they're also not, because they are what drive the games. Which is why it's the best example that I could think of is how fans, they're not the healthiest thing for sports, but they're not going to kill you. It's like eating fast food every weekend, but you're eating healthy food during the week. So 5 days out of the 7, you're eating healthy food, but then on Saturday and Sunday, you're going to the fast food place or, wherever it may be. It's not good for you, but it's not going to do significant damage in the long run. That's what fans are to sports. They help the game, but they also hurt it at the same time. So you can't kick them out, but you also can't accept what they think is their own truth, because they aren't grasping reality. That's why they're called fanatics. They go crazy over things. Their emotions control them. Nebraska throws an interception. Tommy Armstrong throws an interception for Nebraska, for example. Husker fans are going to go absolutely ballistic because, he made a mistake. They don't like it. They are not satisfied with the result of the play because Tommy Armstrong is supposed to do this. But they don't understand what is really actually going on and the scenarios that play into why that interception happened. Andy Janovich, fullback for Nebraska, breaks off, what was that, like a 50-plus yard touchdown run? And 60-plus yard touchdown run? The place goes absolutely nuts because that's something that was great that went in the fans' favor. That's the good side of it. The bad side of it is when people ridicule and say stuff, and it's like, you just don't really fully get it, do you? You're not thinking the whole big picture, the big perspective. Fans only concentrate on a small section of the portrait. They don't see everything. They don't either A, want to, or B, they don't know how. So, again, when I go back to saying that fans put on blinders, that's what happens. And that's why a lot of coaches don't last as long as they should. Now, I'm not just talking about Bo Pelini at Nebraska. It's very, very relevant at any other institute that's in the Power 5 conference or outside of that. Coaches don't last as long as they should. Not even at just college institutions, but in MLB, in the NBA, in the NFL, because fans don't really not just have patience anymore, but they don't get the big picture. So many fans don't get the big picture. And now social media is this giant thing where people, it's a giant forum where people can go and voice their frustrations, and they can then throw tweets at the organization and at the owner and at the coach and at the players. And it takes its toll, and it gets to a point where changes are made. New ownership, new GM, new coach, new staff, different players come in and out. The fans control so much in sports. They don't fully realize it, but that's also, again, because they are so concentrated on on certain things, because they're not willing to acknowledge or accept the general thing, the general perspective. Because they want to be right. Fans want to be right, and they don't want to be wrong because they think they're right. The sense of entitlement really goes into a fan perspective. So again, that's why, bottom line, to me, from watching everybody around me at the games I've been at, fans just don't fully understand the entire aspect of a sporting event, or how sports is, I guess, controlled or run or whatever. Fans, and not all fans, a good majority though, unfortunately, a very big majority, don't understand the general aspect, the big picture of sports. Am I right, Brent? I feel like this is something, Brent, that goes right up your alley.
Greatest fans in all of sports.
Yeah.
No, fans, yeah, a lot of fans, not all, okay? Not all. A lot of fans are really, really terrible. Like you just said, Nebraska fans are some of the worst I've ever been around.
They're two-sided.
Well, yeah,
and that's
okay.
what makes it worse. Because
right.
you look, like for example, 3 years ago, when that UCLA football player died, tragically.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what the student section did. Look at what Nebraska did for not just the football player and his family, but UCLA in general. That was great.
Right.
By the end of the game, Husker fans were ready to tear down their own team because they didn't score a single point in the second half, and UCLA had come from behind and just annihilated Nebraska and embarrassed them at Memorial Stadium.
Right.
That's the complete 180 and we're using Nebraska fans as an example because that's what we know the best. That's the best examples that we can come up with. And that's the example of the 180 turn of how bad Nebraska fans are, because they do that 180. They are so supportive of their team, and by the end of the game, if the outcome isn't what they're expecting or what they want, they're going to turn into the worst fans in college football.
Yeah, right. No, again,
and that's what makes them
Don't get me
worse.
wrong. Nebraska fans, they have their moments, and they're great from the perspective of showing up to games. Obviously, the sellout streak is, that's an incredible thing.
It's phenomenal.
But, if you're... This is going to come up again in my this is what's really going on segment, but the 30 for 30 that aired after the Heisman Trophy presentation last night, the Four Falls of Buffalo, talks all about the Buffalo Bills and those 4 Super Bowls that they went to in a row and lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
All 4 of them, yeah.
And after the first 2, and I think the third, probably not the fourth, but for sure after the first 2, I can't remember. Again, they lost the game. They lost the Super Bowl. and they had a rally of like 30,000 people in Buffalo, and they cheered like crazy for that team. They cheered like crazy. Their team lost, and they cheered like crazy. And the kicker, Scott Norwood, missed what would have been a game-winning kick, and they chanted Scott, 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 and brought him up to the microphone. He's the kicker. You know, they don't talk. They're not in the line. It's not the quarterback. It's not Jim Kelly we're talking about here.
Right.
This is Scott Norwood, the kicker. He's a good kicker, but still. And they had the most support and love for him. So, yeah, a sellout streak is fantastic, and Husker fans have their moments. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're all terrible people, but I've heard so much tearing down. There's support in attendance. There's not much support in, I don't know how to really say this correctly, so I'll just say there's not a lot of spoken support. If things are going great, well, I love the Huskers. Best, I grew up on them, blah, 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 blah. And then when, like you said, Tommy Armstrong throws an interception, they turn into some of the nastiest people that exist. And it's not just a few. Again, it's not all, but it's certainly not just a few. It is probably most. I feel pretty comfortable saying most. At least most of the ones that I've had experiences with. So it depends on how you quantify what a good fan is. I'd way rather have fans like in Buffalo that would, even though the team lost, they love their team so much, they're so supportive of their team. They really don't care about the wins and losses. They care about their team, and the team made it to the Super Bowl, which is fantastic. And then they made the next 3 after that. And even though they lost every time, all those fans still went, of course, by the fourth one, they were kind of like, okay, let's just please stop going and losing because we can't take it anymore. Yeah. But each year they said, okay, this is going to be the one. We're still 100% behind you. This is going to be the one we're going to win. Those are the kind of fans I like. Most fans are not like that. Now, there are fan bases like that where the majority of fans are like that, and those are great. But those, I think, are few and far between. The really, really good ones we're talking about. And again, maybe I don't know. I haven't been in Nebraska that long. I haven't been around Nebraska football that long like some other people. So maybe back in the past, like when they were really good, it was a situation like that. I don't know. I'm guessing it probably was. But now, are you kidding? Man, like they are nasty, nasty, nasty.
And that is the effect.
And very fair weather.
Yeah, that is the effect of having a long, successful run of championships, and then once you have gone past that peak and you start going downhill now, then things spiral out of control. The fans because the fans don't understand that things can't last forever.
Right.
They want that so bad. And again, that goes back to the general perception of sports and how games work and how teams work. It doesn't last forever.
Right.
And it's
enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, exactly. But don't be criticizing. Don't just be going absolutely crazy and criticizing your own team after the successful run of sustained amount of years is over.
Right.
Because it has hurt a lot of college, specifically college teams that come to mind.
Yeah, I think it's worse in college. Yeah.
USC, Miami,
right.
Texas,
Miami's really bad.
Oklahoma was kind of starting to skate on thin ice a little bit just last year. Yeah. Nebraska has suffered from it. It's just amazing. And it's like,
yeah. Are you the Miami
how do you
fans
continue to conduct yourself this way? Like, seriously.
They're spoiled. It's selfish. It's not about the team. It's about them and how the team makes them feel, when they're winning, it's so great. Who cares about you? You're not not a fan of yourself. You're a fan of the team. You should care about what the team's doing. And when they're down, that's when you should be packing the stands and cheering your loudest. Like, come on, get back up. We're still here with you. Instead, Miami's like deserted. They give out free Miami tickets at like Burger King or McDonald's when you buy a Happy Meal. They throw in a free Miami football ticket because no one wants to go.
Exactly.
That's pathetic, and it's sad because that's it is one of the best programs in college football over the course of its history. It's been one of the best, and they can't even fill the stands. At least Nebraska fans will give them credit again for their attendance and buying the merchandise and stuff and repping the team.
Because there's nothing else in the state to cheer for. Let's be fully honest.
Right? Yeah. Well, and that's part of it. Now, imagine if they had other pro teams and stuff. Would Husker fandom be this intense? So
exactly.
That's part of, I think that goes against them. Not that they have any control over it, but still. Fans in general, I think the ones you see are typically the bad ones.
Right.
Now there are, the people who have been, I think and of course, the older you get, the more mellow you get. Like my dad, okay? Huge Florida Gator fan, graduated from the University of Florida, loves the team, and he watches all their games, but, when they lose, he just, he's sick, but he doesn't scream at the TV and like say, I'm
break
never gonna
stuff.
or I'm never gonna watch the game again. Obviously we can't attend the games, but he still watches every game. He still wants them to do well. He still cheers for them all the time. You don't have to be a sociopath to be considered a good fan. Just support the team and the school. Don't support your own selfish desire to watch your team win every single game that they play. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, I agree. Well said, Brent. See, this is why I have Brent in on these rants sometimes, because it brings just more substance to the fire. Always is great stuff.
Yeah.
Always is great stuff.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. Available online at theroute.wordpress.com and on YouTube.
So now we move on to another controversial thing. But first, let us play the intro.
It's time now for Out of Play, the part of The Route where Ryan Swanigan and Brent Barnfloor discuss one major controversial sports story from the week.
Controversial sports topic is what I should say there. And that is Saturday night's Heisman Trophy winner. Now, for the record, this was not easy at all. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Alabama, Stanford, very difficult to try and decide who ends up winning this thing. Derrick Henry broke the SEC record for rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey broke the record for all-purpose yards in college football. Now, when I say that, I'm thinking to myself, well, then Christian McCaffrey, because that's all purpose. That's all three areas of the game for an offensive player: rushing, passing, receiving, and special teams. Christian McCaffrey had 1,847 rushing yards, 540 receiving yards, and I don't know what his special teams numbers were, but they were definitely up there for sure. Derrick Henry had 1,986 rushing yards, which is amazing, by the way, but had 97 receiving yards. 97. And not that many special teams numbers either, because I don't think he was out there for special teams.
No, I don't think he ever returned kicks or punts.
Derrick Henry is your true style, old school running back. where he just is there on offense and that's it. Christian McCaffrey was on offense and special teams and did some freaking amazing stuff. So, by that standard, you would think, oh, well, Christian McCaffrey will win it. And he should have. I personally think he should have. Now, for those of you who are immediately thinking, oh, well, you're playing the race card. Shut up. Do not bring the race card into this because that's not what's happening here.
Do people actually say that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. People, I heard some people saying that Derrick Henry will win it just because, well, not just because. Derrick Henry will win it because race is one of the factors.
Who said that?
I don't know. I remember reading it somewhere. It might have been from Sporting News, I believe, from earlier in the week. And that is the dumbest thing. It's not about race.
Look at the previous winners.
Stop trying to politically criticize and correct this stuff. Okay? This is about talent and numbers, not anybody's skin color. Stop it. Seriously. It's about Christian McCaffrey breaking one record that covers a general span in college football versus Derrick Henry breaking one record that covered just a conference. Okay? It's not about black or white. It's not about where they're from. It's not about who they play for. It's about what they did. And Christian McCaffrey did much more on the football field than Derrick Henry did. Now, granted, Derrick Henry setting that number in the SEC for rushing yards is amazing. 14 yards away from 2,000 rushing yards in the SEC. That's ungodly. But Christian McCaffrey did the rushing yards. He was less than 200 yards away from Derrick Henry for the season total. Had almost 400 more yards receiving than Derrick Henry on the season. And was returning kicks and punts on special teams. Actually, just kicks. Returning kicks on special teams and taking them back for touchdowns. How is this a factor of race? It's not. Not even in the closest facet. What it's more about is SEC bias that ESPN has. People keep on saying that there is no SEC bias, blah, blah, blah. There is, okay? There is, because ESPN will find a way. It's the SEC network on ESPN, okay? You don't see the Big Ten, you don't see Fox Sports throwing in the Big Ten championship. It's the Big Ten network on Fox Sports. You don't see that, okay? You don't. You don't see the bias anywhere. NBC Sports, Fox Sports, CBS Sports. I should take CBS Sports back because they are literally they're with SEC.
The SEC on CBS, yeah.
Yeah, they're with the SEC. I take that
example,
one back.
But that's okay.
Yeah. It's like I said,
your
I take
point
that back.
is seen.
Yeah.
It's taken.
It's ESPN will find a way. Now, CBS Sports isn't exactly as popular as ESPN. That is why nobody is, raising Cain about CBS Sports and their partnership with the SEC. CBS Sports is not drawing crazy out of this world ratings like ESPN has been and will continue to do. That's the difference, and that is why nobody criticizes CBS Sports. ESPN is the most watched thing in this country. And they are going to take advantage of every single opportunity to pull the SEC in and give them more attention than anything else. Guarantee you. You watch. It just keeps happening. And unfortunately, it was this instance because Christian McCaffrey is out on the West Coast where there is barely any ESPN presence, and Derrick Henry is in the SEC, where there is all sorts of ESPN presence. More attention, and again, this is what it spirals out of control to.
Well, now, first of all, I agree with you that there is an SEC bias, but I also think it's pretty well warranted because they have been the best conference for the past decade.
There's no denying that.
Right.
There's no you can't form an argument to deny.
Right. It's the same thing as like ESPN is just a bandwagon fan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but why wouldn't they be? They're in the business of selling advertising, right? I mean, yeah, covering sports, but it's a business, okay? Yeah, if coverage was dictated by fans, if it was voted on by fans, yeah, you wouldn't have as many SEC games, but that's where actually a large portion of the fans are located is in the South. They love football more than just about anywhere else in the country. They love it in the South. Now people say, well, we love it in the Midwest. Well, yeah, but there's only like a handful of people in the Midwest. So now what they show as well at the Heisman, which is to their never-ending credit, is the regions. They break it down by region and how each region voted. And each region, aside from like 3, now we're talking total across the country, and among all 3 finalists, including Deshaun Watson, who wasn't too far behind, but the drop-off after him to Baker Mayfield was huge. But Deshaun Watson was voted second place in one region. Christian McCaffrey was voted second place in, I think, 2 regions, and voted first place in one region. The rest of the regions voted Derrick Henry first place. So he won almost all of the country, and the regions that voted for the other 2 were, it was like California, and then, the sort of mid-Atlantic region, I don't know, the Carolinas, basically.
Right.
So that they voted for Deshaun Watson, as you'd expect, and the West Coast voted for McCaffrey, as you'd expect. Everyone else voted for Derrick Henry. So, is there an SEC bias among the networks? Yes. Is it deserved? Yes. Was it the deciding factor? Was it a factor in this? Absolutely. Was it the deciding factor? No. Everyone still voted Derrick Henry. I would not have. I'm totally with you on the matter. Well, and not to take anything away from Derrick Henry, like you said, basically 2,000 yards in the SEC.
You can't take anything away from him.
No, that's unreal. And that is not equal to 2,000 yards, even in like the Big Ten, and certainly not in the Pac-12, Big 12, or ACC, or any other conference. That is very phenomenal. And also, a big part of the Heisman is the eye test. And to see him have like 44 carries one week and then go out the next week and have like 45, that's unreal. The guy's a truck. He is a physical freak. So very deserving. And if they came back and both these players come back next year and play and they have similar seasons, McCaffrey could win. It's not like this is a huge upset. Oh, unbelievable that Derrick Henry won. He didn't deserve it. He deserves it.
Yeah. They both do.
All 3 of them do.
Yeah, exactly.
Deshaun Watson you could argue he deserves it just as much. Undefeated quarterback of the number 1 team in the country, most likely the team that's going to win the national championship. If Derrick Henry and Alabama don't beat him, well, you got the other teams, but whatever. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But Christian McCaffrey would have got my vote because, like you said, he broke a record that had stood for 27 years, I want to say? Something like that.
Since
Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, yeah.
Like back in, like 27 years.
By the way,
all-purpose yardage record
Barry
in college
Sanders,
football.
one of the greatest NFL rushers of all time.
Yeah, also one of the best in college, and voted
Heisman winner.
I read one thing. It was a ranking of all the Heisman winners against each other, and he was number 1.
Yeah.
Widely regarded as one of the best football players ever. Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
So, that is an elite accomplishment. And the biggest thing for me is, one, he did it on a team that's not as good as Alabama's team. Stanford's very good, but they're not as good as Alabama. Alabama is like 5 stars deep. Is like 5-star, 3 deep at every position. They are so incredibly loaded. Stanford's not quite that good. But the biggest thing to me is he's a sophomore. He did this as a sophomore. He's a teenager. He's 19 years old.
20.
No. He's 19.
Really?
Christian McCaffrey
was
is
20.
19. No, he's the only teenager. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 19 years old. Boy among men, even though, he's obviously a physical freak in his own right.
Right.
But 19 years old, and he carved up everyone they played. His grand finale, which is typically what it comes down to for a lot of people, just like in presidential elections, it's who are you thinking of right now? His grand finale, not Mark Ingram, but Derrick Henry had like 200 yards in his finale. But Christian McCaffrey had, 461 yards? Come on! Yeah, he had just a few, about 150 less rushing yards, like 420 more receiving yards, and like 1,000 plus return yards. Plus he passed for touchdowns. The guy's unstoppable. So I would have voted for him, but that's a whole different debate between the stud at one thing who does one thing. Derrick Henry is the best rusher in the country. Okay, right? We get that straight. He's the best running back in the country on arguably the best team, or second best team. But the Heisman does not go to the best player. Contrary to popular belief, it goes to the most outstanding player in college football. It's supposed to. And outstanding and best are different. There can be a player who is the best and not be the most outstanding. Christian McCaffrey is the most outstanding player. He is the most fun to watch. He is the one doing something he is not expected to do and doing it better than literally anyone else in college football has ever done.
Exactly.
So that's why I'd vote for him.
Yeah, well said. Brent Bonfleur, everybody. Should have started playing the rant music right there. That was
let's not get into that.
That was pretty good, my friend. Not too bad at all. So now we get to move on to another fun debate. This time I think Brent and I will take different sides. But first.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Route, a sports talk podcast. On Facebook.com/The Route 2 and on Twitter at @the_Route 2.
This is what's really going on with Brent Bonfleur.
So, I mentioned earlier, we watched this 30 for 30 documentary last night on ESPN after the Heisman ceremony. 4 Falls of Buffalo. Talked about the Buffalo Bills, 4-time straight AFC champions, 4-time straight Super Bowl losers. All right? And the topic we're going to be talking about today is what makes a good team. Okay, and it doesn't really matter the sport. Mostly be talking about football because that's my favorite sport. But it doesn't really matter what sport you're talking about. So, using this team as the example, 4 straight Super Bowls and the best record in the NFL over that 4-year span. Okay, now they lost all 4 Super Bowls. Some people say that they're a bad team, that those teams were bad teams. And I don't understand how you can say that.
You can't say that.
all season, all college football season, you've been saying Florida, my Gators, are a bad team. And I'm just like, I don't understand it. Because
I don't think I was saying all season. I was saying,
no, you were.
I was saying down the stretch.
Well,
I'll pull up the schedule, and I can tell you when I started saying that, this looks
the loss to LSU, their first loss.
No, that impressed me. I watched that game, Brent. I was impressed by that.
All right.
You know when this started. You know when this started.
It started before
with
Florida Atlantic. No, it started before.
No,
Okay.
it did.
All right.
That's when it started. It started with Florida Atlantic.
Whatever you say, but that's fine, okay? Because, and the reason you say it is because Florida Atlantic is a very bad team, and Florida, who is a good team, not a great team, not an elite team, but a good team, barely beat them in overtime. So
Yeah, in overtime against a lower end FBS opponent.
But that doesn't mean they're no longer a good team. See, people, and this is why you have to differentiate. Differentiate.
Differentiate. That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. So between good and great, okay? If you're talking about great, it's a different standard. This doesn't apply because great has a different connotation to it.
They're a good team, but not a good football team.
Sort of.
Cody Broder. That immediately popped into my mind. Oh, goodness. I've had this conversation before, actually, with Michael Snow and Cody Broder.
Really?
Yes. It was over a year ago.
I wonder what their opinion was. But
I should pull that up.
Let me ask you this. Golden State Warriors this season, good team or a great team?
Great team.
Right. Yeah, they had their first loss, and it's because they were so tired and injury-riddled, finally.
I don't think they were injury-riddled.
Well,
Klay Thompson does not make it.
Oh, he's a huge piece, and they had a couple other guys, didn't they?
No. It was just Klay Thompson. That was it.
Was it? Okay, well, still. Fatigue, right? Pressure mounting and saying they finally get their first loss, and it wasn't that bad. I know it was their biggest loss of the season. Well, it was their only loss of the season. I know, it was their biggest deficit of the season, but still not that bad. Now, they're 23-1 now? Is that the record?
24-1.
Okay. Meanwhile, LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers are 15-7. Good team or a great team?
Still a great team.
You think they're a great team?
Mm-hmm.
That's surprising. You didn't play into my trick. See,
I'm sorry,
but that's what I'm getting at. Why are they a great team? They're 15-7.
That's the NBA, though. The NBA is different than college football, Brent. And I'll tell you why.
The principle is the same.
How many games do they play?
I know. But
records are deceiving in the NBA. 15-7,
which is still a good record.
That's
right. But you just called one team that was 24-1 a great team, and then a team that was 15-7 a great team. That's not just because of their record this season. This is because what kind of team Cleveland is and what kind of team they can be. Right?
There's multiple aspects to to the word great team, or to the two words great team.
So what's the difference? Because let's be real here. Cleveland lost some games that they probably, based on the teams that played, the talent, the rosters, they shouldn't have lost, right?
I think so. I haven't seen their schedule.
They have.
I'll pull it up.
Just take my word for it.
I will.
So it's the same thing with Florida. Just because they lost, one, because they beat bad teams just barely, or even if they lost, it doesn't knock one game does not decide what makes a team good, and especially not great. Okay, that's my ultimate point here. And people will look at teams and they'll just say, they're not good because they haven't played anyone. Like Iowa, they're no good. They haven't played anyone. They're undefeated.
That's deceiving, though, Brent. We've had this conversation. Iowa was deceiving. College football is different now. Who have you played? You're undefeated? Whoop-de-doo. You played North Texas. You played Iowa State.
It doesn't.
You played these low, weak teams. Your best win is Northwestern. Now granted, that's what we were all saying before they hung in and held on with Michigan State and lost by 3. That loss by 3 to Michigan State, a great team in the Big Ten and in college football, that proved that Iowa is worthy of their record. Before that, they had nothing to base their claims that they're the best team in college football. They had nothing to base that saying off of.
That. Who was saying that Iowa was the best? I don't think anyone
there
said
were
Iowa was.
a lot of people and a lot of fans,
Iowa
that were
people
saying
were
that
saying
Iowa
that.
is worth their record. And I said, no, they haven't played any top 10 opponents.
Well, yeah, this is where we disagree because, look, you can't have teams that are undefeated and still be bad teams because what then do you call the teams that they beat? What are they? Winning makes you a good team. There is no undefeated team in any sport that is not a good team. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, it does. It does nowadays.
No.
It does nowadays.
No.
College football is changing.
How does that make any sense at all?
That's how it works in the NCAA tournament. That's how it works in college basketball.
So because North Carolina lost on a buzzer beater to Texas yesterday, they're a bad team now?
They're not a bad team, but they're not a great team.
Again, we're not talking about great. I told you there's a difference between great and good.
Yes.
Okay, we're talking about good teams.
Boy, I wish you could tell this to Michael Snow and Cody Bruder because they ripped me apart when I said that. They ripped me apart. I have tried to continue backing up this argument.
We can talk with them later, but just because North Carolina college basketball yesterday lost on a buzzer beater to unranked Texas, who is a pretty good team. Mm-hmm. Their losses,
they're rebuilding with the new head coach, Shaka Smart.
They have 3 losses, and 2 of them have been to ranked opponents, I think, and then they've also beat ranked. I think they beat Maryland, didn't they? Isn't Maryland one of their wins?
No. North Carolina beat
Maryland.
Yeah,
right. Okay. So and then they beat North Carolina. So it's asinine that people will look at one game and decide, oh, that team's no good. Look at their other 10 wins or their other 15 wins or their other 24 wins. It's how does one game decide? It doesn't. It makes no sense.
It hampers. It shouldn't decide. And I'm not saying it decides. I'm saying it hampers. It raises some question marks, Brent.
But that's because expectations, and I think you're talking about college football again, are so skewed that in order for a team to be good, they have to run the table and they have to win by like 30 every game. People said Ohio State wasn't good this year because they weren't beating people as much as they did last year, even though they were actually, in most games, beating them by more. But last year they're so good, even though they lost their first game. But they're so good, and they were. They were the best team in college football. And I would argue they're the best team in college football this year. But they're not gonna find out because they don't get a chance to play in the playoff. But if they replaced one of the teams,
you just admitted it though. You just said it right there. They're not playing the college football playoff.
No,
therefore they're not the best, Brent. That is the difference now in college football. We're not in the BCS anymore.
So let me ask you this hypothetically: if Ohio State played Clemson right now and beat them, they're still not the best team?
Then they would prove that they are.
And then if they beat Alabama, they're still not the best team?
You have to prove these statements.
Yeah, but the system's not letting them do that. It's not because they can't do it. It's because they don't have the opportunity.
Why don't they have the opportunity?
Because they lost one game.
Exactly.
Because they lost one game?
Yes.
Does that mean that they can't beat those other teams?
They might, but we don't know because
that doesn't mean they're not a good team, though.
But you don't know that, though.
Yes, you do. You know that they're a good team.
They're not getting the chance because they lost that opportunity.
Look at everyone else they beat.
That is how much pressure the college football playoff is putting on these teams now.
And it's completely skewed. People have lost perception of what good actually means.
No, they didn't have it, Brent. They never had it. The BCS was, let's put these undefeated up against each other. Not analyzing like they do in the NCAA basketball tournament how good you really are. How much did you win by? How badly did you lose by to this great team? I'm getting so flustered I can't think here.
So if Ohio State was in an 8-team playoff this year and they ran the table and won the national championship, are they the best team?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that they could do that? Hypothetically, if there was an 8-team playoff this year and they were in it, do you think that they could do that?
I don't know. Because you look at how great other teams are.
If you had to say yes or no, could they do it? Not, is it the most probable thing? Not, are they the most likely team to do it? Could they do it?
They could do it.
They could do it. Could Oklahoma do it?
Could
Iowa do it? Could any of these teams do it? If the answer is yes, then they're a good team. It doesn't matter that they don't get the chance.
It's possible.
Not having the chance to play and prove it, I get it. You need to prove that you're good, but they'll prove it in their bowl games. And even if they lose, look at the teams they're playing. 1 or 2 losses a year does not mean that you're no longer a good team. It just means that you didn't win every game. That's why you're not a great team.
I'm not saying that Ohio State is not a good team. The 4 teams in the college football playoff are great because they proved it.
All but Clemson have a loss.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between them and Ohio State?
Conference championships.
Okay. That's one game.
Except for Oklahoma because the Big 12 is still a complicated mess that they're trying to figure out, which, by the way, is great that they are forcing all Big 12 teams to now play a Power 5, another team from the other 4 Power 5 conferences in the non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
That adds to defining how great, good, or bad you are.
Right. Again, we are talking about what makes a good team.
Good or great?
Good. I said that at the very start. We're talking about good. I said
Florida
there's a difference.
Then
Florida
is good,
is
but
good.
There are question marks.
They're not great. They're not even really close to great, but they are definitely good.
I'm not saying they are a bad team.
There's only, like, if you took, I'm doing this with my hands. Obviously, you can't see, but if you took the scale and 0 was down here, bad, right?
Yeah.
And bad teams are 0 to 50. Let's say, right?
Right.
Okay, that's the bad scale. Obviously, the teams from like 10 to 0 are the worst of the bad teams. Those are the Kansases of the world, right? That's really bad. But the teams from 40 to 50, which let's say is Nebraska, okay, still a bad team, but much better than Kansas, right? So it's different, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, same thing. Let's say good goes from 50 to 90. Okay, that's good. A team that is 50, like let's say Georgia, just barely over, or Miami, okay, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So good team, but not nearly as good as a Florida State, who's at like an 85 or something like that, right? But they're both good.
Yes.
Okay, there's a difference. Great is that last 10%. That's Alabama. That's Ohio State. That's Clemson. Those are those teams. We're not talking about those teams. We're talking about good teams. And that's why a team can be good even if they have like 4 losses on their, if we're talking about college football, if they have a 4-loss team, in my opinion, in college football, can be a good team.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not great. Let's not pretend they are, but they're also not, they're not bad.
Right.
They're just good.
I know that.
And there are teams that are better.
Right.
But our perception is so skewed that we only think in college football that teams that are in that final 10% are good. That's not true. Those teams are great.
Yes.
Right. Let's make the difference. There are a lot of good teams in college football.
Exactly.
There are a lot of bad teams. There are very few
great teams. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Well, that's all I'm saying.
Well, okay. I feel like you're really trying to defend Florida when you don't exactly need to defend Florida.
I do, because people are saying they're a bad team.
They're not a bad team. I didn't say they are a bad team. They had a bad ending to the season.
Sure, yes.
Starting with
an
overtime win against Florida Atlantic. That raised a lot of questions. Yes, they got it. Let's go back before that. 9-7 over Vanderbilt. 9-7.
Now,
that's what started it. That is where it begins. Like,
Now,
there's some question marks.
That's a different thing.
Then
that we
the
can get.
overtime win, more question marks.
Right.
Then 2 points against Florida State, more question marks. And then
That's a different discussion, but I think you can use the same principle, which is there are how do you measure wins, right? Okay. You can have losses, which losses are bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as, I won't say there's no such thing. There is such a thing as a good loss.
Michigan State, Iowa.
Right.
The Hawkeyes lost to Michigan
That's a good
State.
loss. But even the best loss, the 10% of the losses, like that, aren't even as good as the lowest tier of wins. And there are great wins. There are good wins and there are great wins, okay? But even, because a win is so much better than any loss, right? No one's going to say, well, give me a fantastic loss as opposed to just a scrape-by win. No one's going to say that unless you're stupid. I don't know. There are plenty of people who are like that too.
But scrape-by wins raise more question marks than great losses, like Iowa, Michigan.
That's fair.
Michigan State, excuse me. There were no question marks that were raised. Questions were answered in that game.
It's the same.
The overtime win by Florida against Florida Atlantic by a 20-14
was a lower
score
tier win.
Was a lot of question marks that surfaced, and because it was preceded by a 9-7 win over Vanderbilt.
Okay, so they had, I guess if you want to call it, they had. There's no such thing as a bad win, though. I would argue there's no such thing as a bad win. There are wins that are better than others, but there's no such thing as
I don't think there's a bad win, but there are wins that bring up question marks, Brent. That's what I can't really say it any other way than that.
Sure.
It sounds like it's a bad win,
but it's still a win.
But yes.
And what
But that
matters.
doesn't really exist anymore in college football, Brent.
And that's kind of my point, is that it's so skewed.
You play 12, 13 games.
Again, we're talking because you're talking about who goes to the national championship. That's what you're subconsciously thinking about.
We have to analyze who deserves to go.
And the teams that go are great teams.
Yes.
Not good teams.
Because they have been analyzed just as much as everybody else. I guarantee
we're just talking about good teams.
That committee analyzed how good, for example, how great Ohio State is and what they did this season, and Michigan State and what they did this season, who they lost to, how badly was the loss, how great were their wins, who did they play, how much were their wins by. The same thing happened when the College Football Playoff Committee put Florida in at number what? They're number 13, 11,
like 18. Florida,
18
right now? Yeah, Florida's like 18.
Somewhere in there. Wherever they put them, the College Football Playoff Committee analyzed and placed them where they believe they were based on the wins, how big their wins were by, their losses, how bad their losses were by, who they played.
Right.
Same thing with their opponent in Michigan, who they lost to, how bad, who they beat, by how much, who they played. It's different now, Brent.
And
it's not as bland and, I guess, a gray area. Generic. I don't know what I'm really trying to say, but it's not as precise as it is precise now, unlike when we had the BCS. And again, we're just 2 years removed from the BCS. People haven't fully picked up that it is different now.
I get your point that it's different. That's fine. I get that is the mindset. I just think that it's the wrong mindset, because even at 18, that puts Florida at like 82 on that scale. Remember we were just talking about, right? Okay. The great teams are like 90 and above. That puts Florida at 82. So they're still very, very good. Right. That's all I'm saying.
But, okay.
They're not great. I'm not saying they are. They're not as good as other teams.
They're good,
but
there's
still
an
good.
asterisk by how good they are.
I'm very
because again, there are questions. Now, they knocked down some of those questions when they lost to Alabama 29-15, because that was That was a dogfight for the majority of the game until Florida got just, tired and worn down.
Right.
And then Alabama pulled away.
Minutes, yeah.
So there are asterisks, just like there are asterisks by Michigan.
Just like there are asterisks by
Michigan. Look what they're doing.
By
oh
Michigan
my
State,
gosh.
too.
All they got to do is beat Ohio State. If Michigan State loses, and they're there.
What about the asterisks by
lost.
Alabama and their loss to Ole Miss, who Florida smoked?
Florida smoked them?
Ole Miss? Yeah, they beat them 34-3. Or it's like 34-10. Maybe they got a touchdown late.
This season?
Yeah, they absolutely destroyed Ole Miss.
Oh, yes, 38-10. I'm sorry.
38-10.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So everyone has asterisks. Everyone has question marks.
You ever heard of a
Even
little thing called
Clemson
outliers, Brent? There's always outliers.
Oh, sure there are.
College basketball knows them way too well. That's why I'm saying everybody is used to and adjust.
Right.
And they're so used to college basketball. College football nowadays with the playoff is just like college basketball, only it's shrunk down to 4 instead of 68. It's completely, it's the same thing. College basketball, college football, it's a selection committee, it's a process to determine the winner. It's just shrunk down. We basically jump to the Final Four for college football because everything is condensed. It's packed down. It's short. The season is 11, 12 games. There's a conference tournament or there's a conference championship at the end of it, just like college basketball. But instead of having the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, the first round, the second round, that little playoff thing that they have at the beginning that they say is the first round, but it's actually not. That's all cut away for college football. We jump immediately right into the Final Four. And that is why it's different for college for college football. Because we're not used to immediately diving right into the Final Four. It never never has happened in college basketball.
Right.
There's a process of determining who can beat who and who
Which is
can
why
get
the NCAA
down
tournament
to the nitty gritty and to get there and to work there and to work there.
That's why it's the best determiner of a national championship in any sport that exists.
That process
it's fantastic.
Is the regular season in college football. And again, we're not used to that, but we don't have a choice. We have to get used to it because that is what it is. And that is why I say the regular season is the NCAA tournament, rounds 1, 2, and the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
It determines you beat this person by this much.
Right.
You lost to them by this much. Who did you play, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. One bone I'll pick with you there is in the tournament, it doesn't matter how much you win by. You
that's
still
true.
Move on.
Yes, exactly.
But
that's what I thought about.
No analogy
as I was
is perfect, but it's still, I get your analogy. It's a good analogy. Now, I'll just add to this because we got to wrap this up.
Right. Still got other things to get to.
Yeah, right. Oh boy, I just lost my point. What was I going to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the NCAA tournament, we agree, best tournament selector of a national champion in any sport. Widely, I think, universally agreed upon that it's the best. How many of those teams are great compared to how many are good?
I don't know. That's
probably like 8 great. And
I would say, well, you have your
16
your
great.
1s, your 2s, your 3s.
Your 1s, your 2s, your 3s. So that's 12?
Yeah, I'd say about there.
Okay, so that's like not.
Don't forget, there's 300 some odd college basketball teams in the NCAA.
Right.
In college football, there's only 120 some.
So that's less than 20%. That's about 19%
Which is why, again, it's all condensed down.
Right.
And so much more analyzed because you can do that.
So my point is here is if you only kept the great teams, you'd only have a 12-team playoff. Okay, but you have those other teams. Now, how often do the 1, 2, and 3 seeds win the whole thing? Not how often do they get to the Final Four? How often do they win the whole thing? It's still pretty frequent.
It's about 40% of the time, maybe a little less.
I was going to say I'd say it's close to 50-50 that a 1, 2, or 3 seed wins.
Oh, 1, 2, or 3? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about ones.
Oh, just ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3? Oh, it's over 50%.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it probably is. But still, you see my point that those good teams, given the opportunity, can beat those teams. And that doesn't mean that an undefeated number 1 seed Duke team that makes the national championship and loses to a 6 seed Gonzaga or whoever, I'm just spitballing here, that doesn't mean that Duke team wasn't great. The undefeated New England Patriots lost to the 10-6 scrappy New York Giants.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that wasn't one of the best football teams ever. It just means that they barely lost to a good, and I even hesitate to call that Giants team good. Well, they were good. It was good.
It was good.
We'll call them good. To a good Giants team. It just happens. It's just sports. The best team does not always win.
Exactly.
So there you
Simple
go.
as that.
Yeah.
That's great stuff from Brent Bonfleur, everybody. And it continues. Oh, my gosh.
It's time now for
It's your world, and we're just living in it.
a story about a selfish athlete, coach, or just a person in general from the week.
Mr. Bonfleur,
All right.
this is your stage today.
Yeah, boy. So reports emerged Friday that the New York Giants, and this has been confirmed, have cut defensive end DeMontre Moore after he allegedly became upset because he didn't get a pair of free blue Beats headphones. We're talking about Beats by Dre here, right? The hottest Christmas gift in 2015, right? Yeah. I don't. Wait, that's what you're wearing. You're literally wearing blue Beats.
Well,
headphones.
these are little dinky ones.
Okay, yeah, they're not the huge, massive
They're
ones.
like what you're wearing, but
Right.
you're not wearing the
I'm
Beats.
not wearing
but
Beats.
They're
These
like
are,
those.
from the 90s, what I'm wearing, yeah.
Yeah, but they're that size.
Right. So Odell Beckham Jr., Giants stud wide receiver, spreading a little Christmas cheer, handing out free headphones to teammates and coaching staff. I'm pretty sure he has an endorsement deal with them, if I'm not mistaken. Odell Beckham Jr. with Beats. I think so. So he's had some free swag he was handing out.
Which really flusters the NFL in that Sony deal. by the way.
Yeah.
Or the Bose, the Bose deal.
Bose, yeah. And so DeMontre Moore, so first of all, Odell Beckham Jr., he brought enough for everyone, but where the problem occurred was that some guys grabbed more than one pair. And so DeMontre Moore got in a fight with Cullen Jenkins, who I think is another lineman. I'm not sure. Because he didn't get a pair because apparently Cullen Jenkins was one of the guys who took more than one pair. And so they got in I mean, we're talking about like a physical fight here. We're not talking like, dude, what?
You kidding me?
Yeah. No, like these huge guys are going at it and like really fighting. So the Giants cut him, which I completely agree with because the guy sounds like a complete idiot. I mean, this is, oh boy, I could say something here. I'm not gonna.
My Beats, mommy.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're a freaking NFL lineman.
You gotta be kidding me!
Yeah, you're telling me you can't go out there and buy a pair of, I know they're expensive, but still, it's like, what, $150? You can't go buy a $150 pair of your own headphones?
Yeah!
Who cares? Or just find another guy who took two, be like, hey, dude, you want to give me one of those? Don't go punch a guy. So I don't know how the fight started. It doesn't say in the articles, but yeah, got in a fight, and now he's cut. So you just lost your contract to play professional football over a pair of $150 Beats headphones that you weren't going to get anyway. It's not like he was promised these as part of his contract and didn't get them because the management decided we're going to give them to Cullen Jenkins over you because he had a better year. No, this is just a free thing.
It's the ever continuing
just stupid
battle
and selfish
between the two phrases of it is about what's fair in life, and the other phrase, life isn't fair.
Yeah, right.
That ever just constant battle between the two phrases. And this is one of those scenarios.
And if you want to talk about young, stupid, and stupid, this is stupid all the way.
It
This
is
is just stupid.
But at the end of the day, Mr. DeMontre Moore, it's your world, and we're just living in it.
That's
Now
right.
you can definitely go live in your world because now you got to find a new team
You got
to play
plenty of
for.
free time on your hands.
Exactly.
What an
Goodness
idiot.
gracious.
Yeah.
That is going to put a wrap on this show here. We are going to have a
doing
separate
predictions?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
We're going to have a separate podcast for our bowl game predictions. So you have 3 different podcasts to listen to. The MLB podcast special with myself, Devin Cleach, and Matt Rigby. The regular podcast, of course, Here and Now with Brent and myself. And our bowl game podcast, which will be pretty short and sweet and to the point. And pretty fun, though. Some great matchups that we are going to predict. We're not going to give scores. We're just going to predict which team we think will win. So be sure to check out that short podcast as well. And with that, thank you for joining us here on this second to last ever show of The Route. One final show coming up in a week from now, and then we say goodbye to The Route and say hello again to Delay of Game, and we will tease a couple of things with Delay of Game and what's coming up with that on our final show as well next Sunday. Facebook.com/TheRoute2, @the_Route2 on Twitter. And of course, our website, theroute2.wordpress.com. Those will all be changing over to Delay of Game. The Twitter and the websites, the Facebook page will be gone. So those will be changing to Delay of Game as well, starting in 2016. Brent, well done today, my friend.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.
Good night, Canada.